really lucky chairperson because all the parents are very punctual. Yes. Then let's get started. I would like to welcome all of you and thank everyone for coming to this session. Topic of our session is smart cities, driving Asian cities sustainable growth. This convention center is the right place to talk about smart cities, as we are in the center of the future smart city in Binzon province. So I am Takashi Kawabata, Chief Asia Economist of the user base. We have 8 panelists from various sectors who are specialists on smart cities or things related with smart cities. So I will introduce following topics before starting discussion. So please give me a few minutes for agenda setting. Smart city is pretty much important topic when we talk about development of Asia. In these few decades, Asia experienced rapid and massive urbanization. This phenomena reflect dynamism of economic growth in Asia, and various business sectors benefited a lot from urbanization. However, we face enormous challenges from urbanization. So that all the Asian cities are highly congested, such as overcapacity of the logistics, shortage of school hospitals, huge amount of waste, and many others. So the smart city concept can be an effective solution to utilize IoT or other innovation. Then I have been doing a research on Asian economy and politics since my university days. I already spent more than 25 years to the research on Asian countries. And I'm currently writing a news article for Newspeaks. That is a Japanese media under the user base group, which is growing economic business media in Japan. We have more than 3 million readers. Also, I do a research for our business intelligence platform, SPIDA, under the user base group. So from our company experience, a number of inquiries on smart city or smart city related matters is increasing. So the smart city is worth to discuss at right this moment. So I would like to put 4 subtopics for this session. So, and then all the panelists share your views or experience, your concept in 3 or 4 minutes or maximum 5 minutes. We have only 90 minutes, although we have 8 panelists. Then we have discussion among all the panelists. If we have the remaining time before closing the session, I will open the Q&A to the floor. So I would like to divide for the subsectors. The first 3, the Professor Nitin Tripathi, he's a professor from Asian Institute of Technology from Thailand. Yes. And Dr. Lon, Director of the Smart City Development from Binzon Province. These 2 gentlemen will talk about trend of the smart cities in Asia. And secondly, we discuss on the characteristics or concrete example of smart city project in Asia. We have 3 speakers for these subtopics. Mr. Anil Bhaskaran, Managing Director of Idea Center Architects from India. Then Mr. Chawarit, President, Team Consulting Engineering and Management from Thailand. And Mr. Takeshi Izuka, President of Kirom Institute of Technology from Cambodia. Also, he is a Japanese. And these 3 gentlemen will share the experience in the smart city project. And thirdly, we focus on the design and housing. Mr. Tim Kobe, founder and chief executive officer, 8 Inc. From Singapore. And Ms. Liu In, Chief Executive Officer, Lemon Create from China, but originally from Finland, right? And we'll discuss how important designing or housing concept important in a smart city. And the fourthly, this is the last subtopic, the healthcare. Simon Lovegrove, Director M Health Limited from United Kingdom, will speak about health tech in smart city. Okay, let's begin with talks by Professor Tripathi. Please share your ideas on the smart city.
Good afternoon, Mr. Takahashi, and all the panel members and all the participants in this session. I would like to tell about smart cities in India, the experience till now, and also kind of sustainability of the smart city. So I will start with the smart city in India. When our new Prime Minister took over in 2014, then in 2015 he announced 100 smart cities in India. And after a number of cities submitted their proposal, 100 cities were identified, but 20 cities were given green signal and funds to immediately go ahead. And progress is very good. And out of the 20 cities, almost 18 are almost ready. And the next batch of 20 cities have been granted permission now. So, and it has been done to drive economic growth and improve the quality of life of the people. The total cost of the project is $30 billion US, and there are total 953 projects granted, and US dollar 4,600 million has been released. I think the cities which have not completed, they will complete by 2019. So at least by 2019, within say 3 years, 20 smart cities will be ready in India. That's a big achievement for India. And I want to tell about one big project that has come up. A new province was created in November 2000. It is called Chhattisgarh. And this was a totally backward area. And people thought that will be a backward province. But by 2016, this province did very well. And a new capital for this province, Naya Raipur or New Raipur, was designated. And this is a 237 square kilometer area city, totally brand new city, a smart city, and it is functional now. And it is key projects were smart mobility, transport infrastructure, skill development, smart roads, smart communities, etc. And some of the key points are that in this city, this is a first of the greenfield smart city in India, and 27% of the area is green. And cycle lane is there throughout the roads, all along the roads, so that people can use cycle for mobility. Every building has rainwater harvesting, that is compulsory. National Rural Development Agency has identified and created 55 reservoirs to maintain the water availability and save the waterlogging problems in the city. And there are 3 natural lakes which are preserved by NRDA. Public buildings have green building concept, and natural sunlight is there in the daytime, and they boast about it, that sun rays illuminate their building. Asia's largest man-made jungle safari is coming up, and it will be ready by 2019. Raipur is emerging as a major educational and health hub of central India. One new IIT is a brand name for education in India, Indian Institute of Technology, has been created in Naya Raipur. IT, Indian Institute of Information Technology, is created. Indian Institute of Management is created. Ayush University, that is the first of traditional medicine of India. One university is created there. All India Institute of Medical Science is created there. National Law College, there are 6 law colleges created in the last 10 years. So the 6th one is in Naya Raipur, National Law College. And Naya Raipur Stadium is known to be at par with the Melbourne Cricket Stadium in Australia, When the cricket match was done, then Australian team told that it is just like Melbourne. So I think very good facilities are created in that smart city. And I think people's perception of a smart city is being achieved. And people are able to use mobile phone for paying their bills, like all municipality bills. They don't go to the offices to pay. Then birth certificate, tax payment, everything is by mobile now. And there are some 35 control stations for surveillance. There are cameras all around for security and safety. So 35 stations are collecting all the data and security is enabled. Then there is a very good mechanism to see that LAN cables and all the IT infrastructure is immediately repaired if there is a problem. So there is a good response system created. So these are the things that has come in a new city, and I think this is a city to watch. And but how will it sustain? That is a big question. We may create infrastructure, but it has to sustain when people's participation is there. People like to live there, and for that purpose, I have done some study, and I am a professor of geoinformatics, that is geographical information system. This can have maps, this can have tables, all the data. You can say big data also. And then it can mash up to come out with the information and also plan and guidelines. So we can develop, in fact, we have developed livability city index for one city, Khon Kaen in Thailand. And we have applied the same model in another city, Suphanburi. So I propose that to maintain the sustainability of the smart cities, because a lot of money will go into that, and we are trying to see that all the people should be satisfied and the city can go on permanently. So I propose a index or like indicator like livability city index. It can assess the quality of life based on the needs of the smart cities or smart citizens, we can say. That is the first factor is safety, then security, sanitation, healthcare, education, telecom signal quality, business, spatial economic zones, electricity, environment like air quality, noise level, greenery, water conservation, cycle track, then water availability 24 hours. There are some dry, arid areas in some countries where water is not available 24 hours, but in a smart city, we must have the water. So what is the water availability? Cooking gas availability, city mobility, how the people are moving. So some factors, around 14 factors are listed, they should be taken for evaluation by the citizen participation. And I think GIS can provide a very good engine to create a model for this first, and then keep these indicators and test it after 3 years. When the city is functioning, after 3 years we can test what is the satisfaction level of the people, not overall the city, but each segment. Like say, we can have different parts of the city, so we can divide, and then for each, like say 100 meter by 100 meter grid, we can create the satisfaction level. And the same model can be applied to other cities, smart cities, and see how other cities are performing. I think there has to be some indicators for the sustainable monitoring of the smart cities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think we can get some the key elements of the smart cities, and then for me the quality of life is really sounds really important. So the smart city is not a purpose; it's a tool. How to enrich the quality of life. Yeah, thank you very much. So the next speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Long. Please share your views or experience on the Binzone Smart City project. Yeah.
Thank you. He proposed me before that he would like me to talk something about smart city.
Yes. Yeah.
around the world. But I told him that is maybe too large for me. So I focus in the question of how Bình Dương develop the smart city, and beside of that, we can answer the question how in a city in emergent country can develop. Is it possible or not? Because smart city usually happens in USA, in Europe, in developed country in general, or in important place of economy where you are enough rich, then you can think about smart city. But in our point of view, it's slightly different. We use the smart city to make us grow. Then for us, smart city is not only sustainability for the people life or for environment, but also for economy. It's very important in our point of view. So when you say that smart city is a tool to leverage the life of people, I can add on, and also leverage the business of, the enterprises also. And, in Bình Dương, we asked the first question. We have here Eindhoven City, Peter, and also our partner from Eindhoven City. When we work together about smart city, our first question is, okay, we can apply IoT, technology, etc., but where can we find money to do it? It's very expensive, and you apply the technology, the IoT, it seems to be nice, but are you sure that it's bring back, the profit, or people is enough good to use well the technology, or they can also involve in the production of technology or not, or just simply buying, using? It's a big question we usually ask. So that's why we look at the different approach around the world, and we find a very nice approach from Intelligent Community Forum. It's an association of 180 different cities around the world, including New York, London, a big city, but also a small city in different countries. And their point of view is it's not about smart city, it's about intelligent community. So, in English, when you say smart, it's different with intelligent. You say AI, but you don't say AS, right? It's not artificial or smart, but you say it's. And when you say smart bomb, you never say intelligent bomb, So the smart is a little bit different with intelligent. Intelligent, deeper in learning, more in being human. And secondly, is community. They don't use the word city, because when you talk about city, people can think about infrastructure, and think more about material. When you say in community, people immediately refer to the connection between people, interaction, and also people themselves. So that's why we follow this concept. So for us, the smart city is something like, it's technology city for sure, because now we are in technology at the moment. You cannot say that you make a smart city without technology. It's also green city for sure. It's sustainability. But how to make it? So we believe it is like innovation city. And we try to make innovative, creative, dynamic, and connected ecosystem. And we call it smart city because it automatically becomes smart if you are in innovation, innovation place, ecosystem. So we go in this way, and we find that, so that's why we don't directly enter in the question of technology. We firstly enter in the question of institution, how to connect people better. So we go to Eindhoven, and also in Korea and Taiwan, many different countries and territories. Then we find the Eindhoven city, and we are become a sister city. And in this city, they apply a very nice model. They apply something we call triple helix. It's a scientific model from Stanford University. So it's a connection, it's a collaboration model between the government, the enterprise, so it's make like PPP, and also the universities. And all of them sit together, share the vision, share also difficulties and also opportunities, etc., knowledge about market. Then they work together and build together the policies, the strategies for the region. So this is the way we start the smart city. And in 1 year, we already developed the culture of triple helix. Then the universities and enterprises usually work together, and anytime you can connect easily with the government. I give you an example. We try to make the semiconductor in our province because we are industrial province. So we think about building the factory in semiconductor. So we start a project and we make the feasibility study. And then the rector of the local university here, he called me. He said, yeah, I have heard about that. We will discuss that in the Triple Helix meeting. Then he said, okay, that is a good moment. I start to make, a new program for education for the backend in semiconductor where we want to move. So this kind of thing, make people make the whole system harmonize. And then we build together, and then we also define clearly our target. 20 years ago, Bình Dương is still agriculture province, and we make a revolution, industrialization. And today we become one of the relevant province of Vietnam for industry. But we still recognize that our industry is still traditional manufacturing. And you see that now is a moment of Industry 4.0, it's a moment of smart city, a lot of movement of factories, manufacturing move from other countries to Vietnam, to Malaysia, to India, to Thailand. So it's opportunities for us. So it's a moment we decide to make a second revolution. So from traditional manufacturing, we move to high-tech manufacturing. So that's why we have to, plan, create a new master plan and prepare for that. And this is not only about technology, but if you want to move economy, it's not only economy, it's also social development to make a breakthrough. So that's why we didn't call this a breakthrough of economy or whatever. We call it smart city, because you need to build, urban area, you need to build town to adapt the new requirement. You also need to build education, innovation, policies, etc. So that's why we call it smart city, and we build the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem. And we also move into broadband economy, or you can say digital economy, but the base of that is broadband economy. Then we follow the trend of intelligent community, what I already talked to you. So we follow 6 criteria. The first one is broadband. Do you have a good broadband? The second one is the digital equality, to make sure everyone has access to internet. It's a very important tool today to create the innovation, to create new business. The third one is innovation policies. Do we have a good innovation policies here to support people, to make a business, to make a startup, etc. The fourth one is the workforce knowledge. So we have a good education here, to form people, etc. The fifth one is the sustainability. So now we talk about green. And this is very related. We can say, okay, I don't need to build a green city to have a rich city. But it's not true today. If you want to be the rich city, you need knowledge economy. If you need knowledge economy, you need to attract intellectual. Intellectual don't want to live in the machine city. They don't want to live they want to live in green area. For example, so everything is related. You cannot say that I just want to be rich, I don't care about the environment. It's impossible today. Yeah. You should be inclusive. And then the last one is advocacy. Everyone believe the same thing. Use the smart city like marketing, but also use the smart city like a strategy. Then everyone go in the same way, take the same values and build the same values. This is very important in our point of view. So it's a 6 criteria about intelligent community. It's a little bit close to smart city. But if you see that, so it's completely independent with IoT, with machine, with technology, with, modern technology, etc. But naturally, if you adapt all the criteria, then everything will build. And today we talk about IoT, but maybe tomorrow it's not IoT anymore. It's another technology who drive the society. But this technology always based in this kind of thing. You need always digital economy. At least in 10 years, digital economy is still innovation. The most important is always there. So this is what we build the smart city. And this year, we are very happy to be announced one of the 21 cities in the world who has the most relevant strategy to build a smart city. So including Chicago, including Moscow in Russia, etc. So we are very happy with that, and we officially integrate in the intelligent community this year. So we opened the network with 180 cities around the world and continue to build our strategy and go forward for sustainability, for people, for environment, society, and economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ron. So Dr. Ron pointed out several points and some challenges of the smart cities. That elements not only to the Binzhou city itself. Maybe we can apply his points to other smart city project as well. Thank you very much for your raising the issues. Okay, so for the panelists, do you have any comments or the opinions on the presentation by the Professor Nitin and Dr. Ron? Anything, some comments on? Yeah.
I think everybody can come back.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's move to the next topic. Then, so I would like to invite Mr. Anil to share your experience or views on smart cities from your perspectives.
Yeah, hi. I come from a city called Bangalore in India. I've been practicing as an architect and urban planner for the last 20 years. So I have been able to do some research in the last 20 years and have been able to develop some theories related to city planning. So when I would like to go to the fundamentals. If you look at the cities world over and analyze them, you could see that the population growth in each city is phenomenal. And you have a population of 13 million in my own hometown called Bangalore, and then Beijing has about 21 million, Shanghai has 24 million, Tokyo has about 13 million in the whole metropolis, and then Ho Chi Minh City has about 12 million people. So you could see this population growing, and then we keep complaining about traffic congestion, et cetera, et cetera. So what's fundamentally wrong about cities world over? So my research and analysis show that I keep comparing cities to human body. Just like the supply lines in a human body, in the city you have supply lines, water supply lines, gas supply lines, power supply lines, sewage lines, etc. Taking one material from point A to another point B. And I think fundamentally, if it's the unlimited growth, that is the bane of all cities world over. Just like in the case of a human body, if it grows infinitely, that growth is considered cancerous. So in cities also, if you allow cities to grow infinitely, the city will lose its anatomy, it'll disturb and destroy its complete body mechanism. So what is the solution? In simple terms, the solution is reproduction. A city must be allowed to be born, it should be allowed to grow and achieve its maturity, it should be allowed to die. And during that cycle, it should reproduce. In other words, if you are talking about Ho Chi Minh City, if you are talking about Bangalore, if you are talking about Tokyo, instead of allowing it to expand infinitely, then find solutions for the supply chains. Most probably you will be doing bypass surgeries, because you'll be putting underpasses, you'll be putting flyovers, you'll be creating flyovers between the buildings like in Hong Kong, what we have. So this is not a solution. The solution is actually creating newer and newer cities. This is the fundamental flow that you see world over. And there's no escape from this fact. And so that is number one. So we need to allow cities to reproduce and grow into newer and younger cities. That's one of the things I would like to point out here. So when you coin a phrase called smart, you can't expect a city which is extremely old to be smart and efficient, because even a building, as an architect, I can tell you, the redundancy starts setting in after 15 years, because the building's architecture the technology would have changed, the architecture would have become meaningless, the culture inside that building would have changed, etc. So in a city, I believe a city's life is about 450 to 500 years. That's what my research shows. And beyond that, the city should be allowed to die. So during that life period, the city should be allowed to reproduce. And so when you produce younger cities, the younger generation will be happy to move into that city because they come with that mindset. The older generation would like to stay back because their friends are there, neighbors are there, etc. So this is the fundamental issue I would like to bring forth first when you talk about the city being smart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anil. So I really echoed your points. That you shared some fundamental issues of the smart city, and also your points are kind of related with the next generation. Yeah. Okay. So let's. Okay. I'll invite Chaiwat. To please share your experience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to give you the information that how the smart city in Thailand has developed. Really, firstly we start from the transit-oriented development. It is the first thing that we have in 2010, since we have some city train. And then the development of the area around the city train station is not in good order. If you have a chance to go to Bangkok, you can see that how the area around the Siam station it's developed. It is privately developed, and there is no rule and regulations, no laws. And then after that, at the Asok station as well, by now, we cannot say that it is success because the development of the area around is not in order. So after that, in 2011, the green building concept is coming. Then we have the law and regulation, but it is not compulsory. It is it depends on the private to whether they would like to develop according to the green building or not. The incentive is just a certificate. If you do good green building, you can get the gold certificate. Or if not so satisfied, you can get the silver one or bronze one. It's just the one that given by the government. Then lately, we expand more and more of our city train to outskirts of Bangkok. From area to area, they issued a law we call the land use law to control the area, that around the station of 500 meters, the development should be this and that. In general, that's quite in general. And lately, just last year, the government see that if we allow the private sector to develop the area around the station, which of course is supported by the transit-oriented concept, TOD concept, it's still not in good order. So our government has just assigned one of the committee called the Smart City Committee to take care of how we would develop the area. What is really, firstly, to give the definition of what is the smart city should be, and then what's the criteria and the guideline, and what is the incentive that the government will give to the private sector who will develop according to this smart city concept. Then by this committee, they have issued a draft which finally it will be a law to enforce. It will first, not to enforce, but to give a concept. And then if the developer follow this 7 concept, if they fulfill all, they can get the privilege on the tax deduction for 8 years. If they fulfill some of this, they will enjoy the tax incentive by 5 years or something like this. I'd like to mention that this 7 concept, which it is derived and then it will become as the law and regulation in Thailand, is that the first thing they would like to keep the good environment. For the smart city, it should be resort conservation, it should have the pollution management and control, the development should be balancing between the development, the people, and the environment. And those areas should have the environmental management and monitoring program. That's the first issue about the environment, which is the compulsory for every development, for every city, and it extends to the smart industrial estate as well. With this regulation, that the first thing compulsory, if you can compliant to the environment of these 4 categories, okay, you can pass, and you can get the incentive. With the other 6, 1 plus another from the selected 6 one. Second one is the energy. Of course, it has to be the efficient energy consumption. It should have the alternative green energy. Another 2 conditions under the category of energy. The third condition is living. It should be the people who is living in this smart city should have the health, good healthy. It has a detail. I just brought up what it is mentioned here is good healthy people. It should have provide the public safety to the people living in this smart city. It should have the system, intelligent system, to give the living facility around the area to be in good condition. Those are the living, the third one. The fourth one is mobility. Because of course, when people staying together in the city or in the smart city, the density of the people will be high and high, of course. So the regulation that it will come out that it should be accessibility, convenience, and safety. The efficiency of the transportation should be at one level. Logistics should be good. Sharing of green mobility should be adopted. The fifth one is economy. The business, the innovation, the transformation of the economic using in this smart city should be applied. Sixth one is the people. People living there should have good knowledge, should have the knowledge about the digital. So it means that they should have a training program for people in that area as well. They should have the lifelong learning environment. So it means that there should be the training here and there for the people living. And the last one, the governance. So people living together should have the governance service accessibility to the government. The citizen living inside should have a good level of participation in the activities that they would like to. And the governance of the people should be transparency as well. So those ones will become a law, so that to strengthening the new smart city in Thailand, including the smart industrial estate as well. And it started already for the area, like it has notified in the contract that the investor who will develop the high-speed rail, the first high-speed rail in Thailand, linking 3 airports, which they can have the area at Makassar and at Sriracha. They have to develop these 2 areas under this concept. So this is the one that it will be, under the law. So I just would like to, at the first round, to give the information that what is going on.
Thank you very much, Chaiwat. As a frequent traveler to Thailand, I experienced the highly congested the traffic situation in the metropolitan Bangkok. So I'm really interested in how the smart city project in Thailand is going to be in the future. Yes. Simon, do you want to have something to comment? Yes. He looks to want to say something.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I was impressed that we are here in Bin Duong. Excuse me if I don't pronounce that very well. But it gave me a chance briefly on Sunday to look around and see how they have started this amazing project here. I come from the healthcare angle, so if you'll forgive me, I have 3 quotes. They're very short, but I want to read them to you. The first one is from the World Health Organization, and it was written in 1948. It says, "Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity." First point. The second one, "Humans are social animals, and individuals' sense of self is greatly influenced by their social health. Social interactions are not just pleasurable, they are essential to our very person." The third one is taking me to the heart of this point. "For too long, we have neglected the human dimension, being so enamored with the economic side. Building should improve the lives of people." This is a man called Professor Lam Ki Po of Livable Cities in Singapore. The reason that I'm involved in smart cities, and I'm just going to call them cities and leave the word smart out because Dr. Long himself has just found it difficult to find an interpretation of that word. So, healthcare has changed. It used to be about curing people in hospitals. It is now about what is called integrated care. It's the total dimension from the beginning to the end of care, how people can be looked after, and more people now are being looked after outside of hospital in the home. This creates a connectivity between homes and health, and this is how we've been working on this. I personally have worked in 5 countries on cities. The first one was in Qatar, which was a small development, which was called Bawa City. This was a project which was basically to create a new small population of about 30,000 people, and they wanted to build a hospital on the side of it, and we were responsible for the hospital. We moved with the Qataris to Egypt on what was called New Cairo, a development of 5 million people in just a little bit higher up the hill from the Nile, and it was a big development that was going ahead, but unfortunately got stopped by Arab Spring in 2011. I worked in China, in a city which I adore called Chongqing, and it's a city where they were expanding, and this was a very important expansion of a district called Banan. And it was the need to, it was really the first time we brought healthcare, education, homes, and not just homes for the elderly, homes across the whole age range. And we brought this in with shops. We had an entire shopping street. We had all sorts of things which made it an interesting area. Now I am working on two projects. One is in the Philippines, and the other is here in Vietnam, in Da Nang. These are projects which I am passionate about. I love these projects because I think they're very important. I also love them because we can't do them in Europe. We have old cities. Our old cities were born in the time where the horse and carriage was the main form of transport. So our cities are confined by these problems. So healthcare is a driver, but not the only driver. The expressions that have been created by Dr. Long, for example, of innovative, sustainable, green agenda, affordable are very important aspects. The other thing is transportation. We in London, which is a city which people think is a good city, but nevertheless 9,600 people die from pollution every year, and 50% of those are children. It is a disaster, and it is created by the car, and it's created by vehicles. And when I go, excuse me if I quote one or two examples, when I go into Sukhumvit in Bangkok, I see the lid over the road, which is created by the transit system. And they do their cooking underneath, and the temperature underneath there is at least 3 degrees more than when you go off to the left or right, right? And when, excuse me again, if I go to Shanghai, they have double layers of roads, and the top layer creates the lid over the bottom, and that must create a pollution problem. Must create a pollution problem. So when we look at cities, we have to look at the holistic component of cities, not just any one component. And this is what absolutely fascinates me. We can look at it from different perspectives. The other thing, if I may say, is infrastructure is incredibly important, but it is also an abuse sometimes. New York, 25% of Manhattan is made up of infrastructure roads. 5% of Manhattan is made up of Central Park. They are now revisiting that to see if they can find a way to try and rebalance that a little bit more. When we talk about health and care and the way we live and the fact that we need to have communities, not houses, we need to have communities where people live, enjoy there, and have prosperity. Prosperity not in money, but prosperity in their life. When we look at these things, we also have to look at things like parks. When we think of any project that we think of, we look at, excuse me if I use percentages very quickly, we look at round about 17.5% for infrastructure, and we use at least another 17.5% for parks. Because this is one of we call these the lungs of our city in London. They create trees, eat carbon dioxide, and deliver off oxygen. So they are life-saving and life-giving. So these are the aspects that we are particularly interested in, and we want to be able to look at that with all of you, because you've got expertise which I haven't got, but perhaps I have just a little bit of expertise which other people might like to abuse or use. So this is really what I wanted to tell you and explain from my perspective why healthcare and smart cities go together. And thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. So your viewpoints are really kind of human-centric. the elements. Then I actually I didn't have not so much idea how do you discuss on the smart city from the kind of healthcare point of view. So I was really impressed by your discussion. Thank you very much. And then maybe okay. So we still have 3 speakers to but maybe so. Anil, do you have any comments on Simon's point of views? I think your points are more like really related with the next generation, how to create a sustainable city or sustainable community. It's deeply related with Simon's point of view.
Well, yeah, I agree quite a bit with Mr. Simon's point of view. I think the points that he just outlined are extremely essential when you plan a city. Those are the elements that will make the city more livable and healthy. However, my fundamental point was that a city should be it should be a constant process. Evolution of a city should be a constant process. It's not frozen in time. A city is born, it acquires the maximum size and growth potential. It should be allowed to die, and then it should, in the meantime, it should reproduce. So this is the axiomatic truth, universal truth. Nothing is constant, nothing is permanent, everything goes through the life and death cycle and the regeneration. And it is absolutely true in the case of cities, number one. Number two, while you're planning that, the city that I'm talking about, and while it grows, it should also grow multicentric. Very important to understand. Because if you look at human body, if you look at any living organism, if you look at the planetary systems in the universe per se, what you see is everything is multicentric. We have a solar system with the sun as a center. We have a body with a lot of cells and some centers. And so if you allow the city to grow with just one center infinitely, then it cannot sustain. So the city has to have multi-centers, and the growth should be multicentric. That's one of the important points. Then somehow, the second point I would like to make now is that somehow there is this notion that a city, a smart city is something made out of glass towers spread over a nice landscape. That is absolutely not correct. In fact, if you look at glass as the material, let's look at glass as just one material that is used in construction. If you see the quality of, the property of glass, the radiation from the sun comes in the form of short waves. Glass has 2 properties. It will convert the short wave into long wave, and it will allow only the transmission of short wave, which means the radiation can come into a building and it cannot go back. This will result in heat entrapment, and it will heat up the building, which is called the greenhouse effect. So too much of use in glass in tropical countries like Vietnam, in India, in Singapore, etc., is absolutely counterproductive. Because it will heat up the building, you have to put more powerful air conditioning building like this building. We are using extremely powerful air conditioning, and actually you are freezing people to death. So my point is this: if you can open up the buildings, in tropical countries, you can allow the air to come in, light to come in, etc. It will consume less amount of energy. This is called living with nature. And so consumption of less material, living with nature, will actually result in production of smart cities. So these are some of the elements that will come together to make the city smart. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your valuable comments. Then, okay, let's move to the Mr. Izuka's presentation. He is a specialist on the education. The education is a kind of the core, how can I say, the core of the how can I say, the mindset. So the education is also the highly connected with the discussion from Simon and Adil. Please, Izuka-san.
Thank you very much. So my background is IT and IT-based serial entrepreneur. So lack of staff. So I'm president of university and the president of Nature City. So our project is called Bikinirom Nature City. So 100 kilometers from Cambodia capital city. So and owned by one company on top of the mountain and with rich nature. And the foundation layer is ecotourism. So we prohibit to say smart city because if we make city, 100% have to be smart city, so no need to say. So, and so we have 9,000 hectare land, but we cut only 4% tree, and after cut 4% tree, we plant 4% tree. So number of the tree is same before development and later. This is our policy, and our target population is only 100,000 people. This is very, very small compared to Tokyo or a normal city. So our case, city is just a brand name. Maybe not maybe city. So, but how 100,000 people live together is we do big experiment. So maybe kind of smart city experiment in the forest. So we do strategic thinking. So how to win competition between smart city. So our strongest is a low-cost operation and big nature and education and IT and tourism. So we cut some element. We are based on the blue ocean strategy. We are not normal city. So we are special function city. So we focus ecotourism and education, IT, and retirement, maybe health industry. So, and we don't consider permanent living. Maybe minimum 1 day, maximum 5 years. So this is kind of co-living. So, and our model come from Google campus and Infosys Bangalore campus. So if these two cities in the forest and open to the tourists, I'm really happy. So I try to do this. So, and our city is following the SDGs. That means no social problem city. Especially in Japan, so the passing rate is down. Maybe problem come from education. So we want to solve this problem. So maybe like this. And we want to save road size. Road construction very bad. How road side be half? So we decide to block all private car. So driverless electric car plus share ride model. So anyway, we are doing experiment. So, and we also don't like bicycle. Bicycle is pollution, my idea. So we want to choose electric kickboard. So, but not so safe, but it's maybe a better solution. So, and the basic concept is walking. Walking city is make health better. So, maybe I think sometime we are not city. We are very huge social hotel, maybe 100,000 people. Maybe this is maybe like this. So anyway, so we minimize concrete. I hate concrete. Minimize concrete and 30 square meter per residence because maybe capsule hotel in the big forest. So because the forest is good, so we living in the nature. So we try to do this. So yeah, and all factory prohibit. And even agriculture maybe not good. So maybe 95% agriculture prohibit. So, and best water, we have to try best water recycle system. Maybe like California, maybe toilet water can drink. So maybe don't throw to the river. So maybe our city is like this. And why we have university inside is this is a project-based learning for our student. So our KIT student do everything infrastructure for our smart city. So that's it. So maybe I want to feedback my big experiment as a smart city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Izuka. His concept is really sounds like very, very new for me. maybe all of you too. So it's a literally the sustainable. So the Mr. Izuka it seems to realize the literally the sustainable city, or I think the word city itself is not adequate for his concept maybe. Yeah. Okay. So let's move to the two other the last two speakers, the Tim and Lou. Please share your ideas on the concept. So you are the specialist on the designing and housing something. Yeah. You first word?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Tim, please. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I come from a strategic design background, so many of these problems are very familiar when you start to look at anything that requires creation and development. The question of how smart cities can drive sustainable growth, I think, is the fundamental part. And to me, the idea of looking at the process is one of the most important pieces. And that means making sure that the solutions, the things that are being described here, continue to be focused on human outcome. And if you focus on human outcome, ultimately the results have the beneficial economic and other development outcomes that most nations are looking for. We understand there's a projected $7 trillion of investment in the next 12 years coming into this region. So I think with that, there's opportunities for us to start to think about looking at the picture a little bit differently. And what that means is we have an extraordinary opportunity to leapfrog some of the old challenges, some of the old systems. And whether it's to live and die and see a reproductive city, or to look at other types of approaches, it would be absurd for us to approach creating new solutions the same way and expect different outcomes. So I think the onus is on us to look at creating new solutions and exploring new ways, given such an impact that we will be having globally. So I have basically two insights, and this comes much from our work that we're doing in China, but in Asia broadly. The first is the shift towards quality of life. And we see this more and more from what we learned from rapid expansion in China was some tissue rejection when it came to just creating housing versus creating homes. And I think this idea that, again, moving back to focusing on human outcomes becomes essential. And we try to define that as understanding the experience that people have, designing a human experience as a core piece of that. And to some degree, it means moving away from solving problems. And this may sound a little strange, but it's moving from problem solving to value creation. And the value creation is human value. The human value then leads to the economic value. And so the more we solve for problems, the more we understand that we've already created a condition that we have to fix. And that means we have so much friction as a result of creating something to fix that it becomes almost impossible. So it's important not to go into the repetition of old mistakes and then try to solve the problems that those old mistakes created. If you focus on the positive human outcomes, as I mentioned, we see positive economic ones, but also the opportunity for extraordinarily successful communities. And Singapore is often held up as an example of a nation that's been able to balance livability with economic success. And Lee Kuan Yew is commonly held up as a political leader with great sensitivity and insight. I wrote a piece a few years ago about him as an extraordinary designer. And most of the time you don't think of a politician as a designer. But this is also someone who, while in the process of creating an economic environment and places for homes, planted 10,000 trees per year. The idea that he would have the insight or the foresight to plant 10,000 trees per year and have to go back and rationalize the economic value of doing that meant that there was a much deeper understanding of the human value that he was creating. The second point is, and I think it relates to technology, we often confuse a technological capability with a technological value. And what that means is, while we're busy creating the thing that we can do, we often lose sight of whether or not it matters to anyone. If you look at most startups, 95% of startups fail historically. 42% of the reason, and it's the number one reason that startups fail, is they're a technology looking for a solution, which means they weren't really solving a human outcome. They were trying to apply a technological innovation. So I think it's important, if you look in the health space, and I think Simon mentioned the health space, 30% of Chinese today are overweight. That's 300 million people. 73% are now exercising. And there's an application called Keep, which some of you may or may not be aware of, but the trend is to teach people how to exercise and how to take care of their health better through this application. They now have 140 million users, and in the last 6 months, they've added 40 million users. So this is something that's very, very current and very relevant. Also, if you look at an application called WIM, which is being used in Helsinki, what's happening there is people are being able to manage the way you move throughout a city. And again, the discussion around mobility as a key element in a city. Designing for value means you have to look not only at the individuals and the corporations, but you have to look at the societal and environmental factors. And just lastly, I think I mentioned earlier in a conversation to beware of best practices, and most people don't tell you that, but I heard a gentleman in one of the other sessions talk about which of the 5 economic models were we going to follow. And the one he left out was the 6th one, which was to create a new one. And I think we should not forget that there's an opportunity for creation. We don't have to always emulate something else, but don't forget there's an opportunity to create something new. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Tim. So then, I'm also living in Singapore now, so I feel some I also agreed with your some points on the policy by the Singapore government. And also the example of China. The China itself has a really huge population, and then the figures surprise us always. That then okay, let me invite the last speaker. Yeah, Liu, please share your experience and opinions.
Sure. Thank you, Takashi-san, and thank you, panelists and the audience, for everything today. So,
thank you very much for waiting for a long time.
This is a fascinating topic for me. So, my name is Liu, and I'm the CEO of Lumon Creates. I look at this a little bit from a different angle. So, we don't build smart cities. We have worked with tens of thousands of buildings, and mainly residential buildings. So we really see this development from inside the household, right? So what we do, we actually we engineer and manufacture glass facades for indoor-outdoor spaces, what we call transitional spaces. So this is something that we do. Then recently co-founded another company called Future Urban Living, realizing how fast everything is changing, and we're trying to solve the DNA level problems of a lot of organizations trying to get involved in a sustainable city or sustainable urban environments. So a lot of these things that have been mentioned in here, I do agree. I am also moving from the smart or intellectual city into what Mr. Lovegrove here mentioned already, to livable environments. And this is the way I like to look at things as well. So we're based in China, right? And we've mentioned China many times as well. To really understand the development and the changes China is going through is to look at its social fabrics. And to look at its social fabrics, it's really about the people. So if we just look at the 3 generations and the way people have changed from my grandparents to my parents to my generation, is from 7 children communities living in collective living all together, multiple families, never lock indoors, into my parents' generation, which is already very different, cultural revolution, opening up to the world, to my generation of one-child policy, individualistic living, sky-high rises where we don't know neighbors, and this has all just happened in a couple of decades. So really to understand this and to ask the question of why are we developing into the area of smart cities or intellectual cities or livable cities, what is the purpose behind all of this, right? And really to look at Shanghai, I like to take the people perspective on this. So Shanghai, as you mentioned, we have 24 million people, makes it the biggest city proper in the world. Out of 24 million, our fertility rate today is less than 1%. It's very low. There are different contexts to this, of course. Life expectancy is the highest in China. So what this means is that you have lots of old people, more old people, very small percentage of new kids being born, and urban migrants of 40%, which is a very high number. At the same time, the city depends on these young people in source of labor and innovation. But at the same time, because of our very unique hukou policy, social security policy in China, urban migrants very often are not fully integrated in the city that they live in. This means that their kids' education system and elderly care are not integrated in Shanghai, for instance, where they have lived in 10 or 20 years maybe working. So to really look at these type of problems for us is to understand how can you maximize the human potential of these communities? How can you build a system and design a system in a city that supports this type of human capital, right? Because when we talk about smart cities today, for me, a lot of it is optimizing systems through digital layers to optimize our resources. So that's energy usage, that might be transport, that might be, food production. But really, what's behind all of this goes very much back to what Mr. Kobe was saying as well. What is the meaning behind all of that? How do we maximize the human capacity behind all of this? And what makes the city livable? So really, when we look at housing and the industry that I am in, we very much work with different types of spaces. And today our spaces are built, they're not really built for 21st century, of course. They're very dumb. Even if you look at this space, for instance, this space is already, all these walls over here and walls over there, they're retractable, so you can move them away and modify this into something bigger. And we need these type of solutions much more, but on a city level and on a neighborhood level, so that they're more agile for human needs. And this is my perspective on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lu. Yes, the Shanghai is one of the largest cities in the world, and then
City proper, yeah.
yes, yeah. Then I'm struck by some high expectancy rate. The Japan also have the similar problem, and then we are going to be a super aged society. Then we have lots of problem how to resolve it, and then how to the people can lead in terms of the not physical development, more like a mentally rich life, how to lead that. Yes, thank you very much for the views. Then Tim, do you have anything to say? So you look still. Yes, please.
Yeah. So lastly, I would like to say that many smart cities are coming up, and there are two things we have to take care. One is the evaluation for their sustainability. So we should have some kind of a measurable indicator. So I propose a livable city index, and we can prepare like a map every 3 years and see the report. Second is carrying capacity of all the smart cities. Like in this room, how many people can sit? Same way, in a smart city, how many people can live, that has to be determined. And there should be strict enforcement that no more than that. If there is another population and then you are to create another smart city, like Anil has told that one city can give birth to another one, but it should not die on its own weight. I think we have to be very careful for the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So all the panelists, do you have any comments to or share the views? Okay, yeah, I think please, yeah.
Comment, sorry, just one last comment. I think the interpretation of being smart should be appropriate and optimum, as you just mentioned. Anything excessive cannot be smart. You mentioned about technology, whether technology is just there for the sake of using it, you just put into some building and then call it smart. Whether it's smart or not is the question. And so I think you are right. We need to be very careful when you select technology. You mentioned about livability, which is absolutely correct. I feel when you talk about human-centric city, my city models that I've designed over the last few years are they are based on based on the fact that they give a lot of importance to pedestrians and cyclists. So I feel the city should be primarily designed for pedestrians and cyclists. And in my city model, I have come out with an idea where the city can be designed in a radial fashion. So it's like a Christmas cake. Have you wondered why Christmas cakes are designed the way they are designed? Because when you cut it when you cut it radially, then you'll get the ingredients, all ingredients in one piece. So any section will have all ingredients. So that is the advantage of designing a city in a radial fashion. One last point is this. I think anything that is, when you design a city, you should think about the planet. When you say, if you actually make a planet-friendly city, it is also smart. Because, when you go into excessive use of material, it will be absolutely planet unfriendly. And we are already, the planet is, I believe, is taking the stress of the human greed to quite an extent. And if we continue to exert this stress on the planet, we are going to lose the biodiversity in the next 50 years. That's the estimate. So I think we need to make the cities planet friendly. When I say planet friendly, we are talking about climate, you are talking about material, you are talking about everything, the natural resources, etc. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we still have 10 minutes. Okay, so I would like to open the discussion to the floor. So, please.
Yes, please.
Gentlemen.
Thank you for your very interesting different perspectives on the smart city or smart community, or just will I say every city. One thing which came to my mind that we talk a lot about smart technology, but actually, I missed the whole word data, because it's not the technology which makes the city smart, it's the data we collect in all these techie IoT type of devices, and which we eventually use to collect and to interpret and to use the algorithms to make the smart decisions, which eventually should influence, hopefully, impact in a good way the life of people. So maybe one of you can reflect on that. The second is, Mr. Izuka, please come to Holland, because we're not banning the cyclist, even we're building fast cycle paths for the inter-regional commuters, where we're also introducing electric pathways to get rid of mobile or fossil transportation and remove it and even substitute it with bicycles. So maybe we have a different vision on that. I'd really like to understand a little better the whole concept of smart cities in India. You mentioned big figures. But I imagine that this is not only a public investment. So can you elaborate a little on how you share this investment, public-private, and how do you manage to do that in a proper way so that you don't deliver the city to Alibaba or Amazon or any other tech giant. And my third remark is I really like the definition of healthcare as you mentioned, because health is a state of mind, but it's also the ability to participate in society and economy, even if you're living with a certain condition. But what came to my mind is that in Asia there is a hospital-centric type of healthcare. So in Vietnam, you don't go to a GP or a general practitioner doctor, but you straight go to the hospital. So even if we want to stretch the whole healthcare paradigm into self-responsible people, also extend it to our neighborhoods, we also have to come over a kind of culture barrier where a regular citizen in Asia prefers to go to a hospital instead of go to a local doctor. So thank you for some of your comments on these.
Any comments or response to his points? Please, Simon.
You're absolutely right. GPs, or primary care, is only actually practiced in about 5 countries in the world. So I'm not advocating it. What we're saying is that hospitals fit within a continuum, not in isolation. We also suggest that the problem here, as in every other country in the world, is the increase in diabetes, the increase in obesity, the increase in heart disease, the gravitation towards cities. In China alone, I think it's about 100 million people a year are moving towards cities, and overall, by 2050, 2.45 billion more people will be in cities. So these are the issues. The solutions is, one, clinical progress. We are getting much reduced lengths of stay, so people don't have to stay in hospital so long. But the correlation of that is they need to be given some attention outside. It can be done with informatics, it can be done with various things, and the connectivity of informatics between the home and the hospital is one of the solutions that is very important. I think I've covered most of the points that you raised on the healthcare side, but those are the things which I find particularly interesting and why I think it's something that we can really do very, very well. And it's something that's only available today, and it wasn't available yesterday. One last point that you made, Ying, was flexibility. This is very important. And I'm from a country where I grew up in a house which was 500 years old when I started, and it's 590 years old now. And I then bought, as a family, we bought a house which was 600 years old because we liked the idea of living in an old house. And then when I bought a house in London, at one stage, I was told it would be knocked down within 40 years, even though it was new at the time. So flexibility is very important in the way that you do design. And it's also very important in the design of healthcare. And that's important in the design of transportation, because transportation is changing. BMW now are suggesting that their business is mobile transportation, not cars.
Charlotte, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. I just would like to wrap up that I support him quite a lot. Many points, it's in the same direction. The thing is that I would like us to realize that moving people into the city, it is the normal phenomena. We cannot escape, we cannot avoid this thing, because really in city, it's like the economic induced, because you stay in the city, you know that the cost of water in the city is much cheaper, because the density is quite a lot. Electricity for the city is much cheaper than electricity for the rural area. And job. You have a lot of job in the city. So of course it is the normal phenomena that people will moving into the city. We cannot avoid. Like in Thailand by now, we have the statistic that 20% of our population is in city, since we are still developing countries. But for the developed country, the statistics say that the population is about 50% in the city And they have a large city elsewhere around the country as well. So we have to face with it. So what we should do, as I say, example in Thailand, we will issue a law and regulations to control and try to induce the people, try to make the people to aware that smart city is quite important to get ready for people to moving in the city. The problem that we will face, I will point out three things. One is that the population density of the city will be high. Of course, the health problem will be more and more. Social problem as well. In the city, we have more social problem. And in their hometown as well, because separation of the family will happen for the people who is looking for a job in the labor level or in the service level. They cannot take their family to stay in the city because the cost of living is high. So separation of the family is one of the social problems that we will face. Second thing is the congestion will cause the pollution. We will have a lot of pollution in the city. You have solid waste, you have wastewater. So we have to looking for the more efficient technology, better management of this thing. Third point I would like to mention is that consumption in the city will be high, since the density is high. So we have to looking for water, like Bangkok. For every year we have additional water that we have to feed in Bangkok. Energy as well. We have to produce energy from somewhere else to feed Bangkok, to make it, it's not much bigger in size, but density is very much higher when we finish the city train. So that we have to find more technology to deal with these three issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jayawat. Okay, the last question, please.
Well, Chairman, I'm Wei from Malaysia. I'm an investor in technology business, and also I'm a regulator in the telecommunication and multimedia industry. I have a comment, and that can also be a question. Smart city, it is a great concept, especially when we can plan into new areas, green field. Quite often we have brown field, we have also the existing areas of which we don't have the luxury of planning this. And not every city has the same problem. That means not every city has got the water problem, not every city has the same traffic problem, or cleanliness problem, or waste management, or healthcare. Every city has its own characteristic, and there's a reason why different people choose to stay in that city. The young people like to stay in certain area. Chances that there isn't much of the health problem. So the so-called smart health is less relevant there versus city whereby there are a lot more old folks, that, you need to have more home care. So I think the comment is this: there is need to be able to customize the smartness, because we can always put all kind of sensors, all kind of technology. However, the engagement with the citizen, it is actually one of the most important conduit to receive those information about what makes life worth living and smarter over there, because the need of the population will be quite dynamic. And then let's say some city, as simple as lighting, brightness in some areas, how would the planner know whether that place is bright enough or not, right? But the citizen who live there could actually provide the feedback either through some kind of app, mechanism, or whatever it is. So in other words, the engagement with the citizen will be one of the most important elements in continuous building of the smart city, because it's going to be dynamic, and it's a journey. It's not going to be the end point.
Thank you very much. So our time is running out already. So the plenary session at the auditorium is going to start. So I have to end this session. Then anyway, we must be more human-centric when we talk about the smart city. So if we talk about the city development, we tend to on the physical development. But we learned a lot from the older panelists, the views. We must be more human-centric. Thank you very much for your presence for this session. Thank you very much. 写真です。グループフォト。